about it. We want to get started on our congressional, our 2nd District U.S. congressional candidates. As everyone knows, Congressman Jacob Turner is not running and has considered to retire after this term is up. So we have 5 candidates that are running for that office. And I'm going to go by the list of candidates on how they filed. That's not the only fairest way I could figure out how to do this. So our first candidate I've got is Jeff Kahrs. Jeff is from Wichita. He was congressman. He was with Congressman Hart's chief of staff as a senior advisor to Congressman Jacob Turner. Jeff is a 2nd District Committee man. He lives in Topeka with his wife, Lisa, and 2 sons. Jeff?
Thank you, Ray. I get to go first. Wow. First of all, congratulations, Ray. This is quite a crowd, especially on a somewhat cloudy, rainy night. So, my name is Jeff Kahrs, and I did grow up in Wichita. I'm a Topeka boy these days, though. But let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I went to Washburn Law School. That's how I got into Topeka. After that, I clerked for the Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court. Then I went and worked for Congressman Hart, a good MOVA conservative. Worked for him on the Hill as the Chief of Staff for 16 years. Then Brownback asked me to come back when he became governor to do reforms and oversee reforms for SRS and the DCF and really push through welfare reform. And that's one of the big accomplishments that we did, that Governor Brownback was able to accomplish, was we did a lot of work for foster care, which is hard work. It's a hard work to find good families to take care of these kids that are coming out of horribly broken situations. But we said, listen, no former governor had ever required people on welfare to look for work. I mean, how basic is that? I think a lot of these people do want to work, so we require them to work. We cut our welfare rolls in half. Because of the good work that the governor did in Kansas, I got the attention of the Trump administration, and the president asked me to come and join his administration and to oversee HHS in the Midwest for 4 states, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Iowa. And then after that, Jake Turner asked me to come help set up his DC office and then be the district director as well. So I see a lot of familiar faces in this audience because over the last 3 years I've been going over the 26 counties, and especially up here in the northern part, which I love because I was just saying this earlier, I think that these 2 counties are probably the 2 of the most conservative counties of the 26 counties in KSO2. So hats off to you on that for your consistency and the type of people that you send up to the legislature. Anyway, while I'm running, I got a lot of encouragement when Jake announced that he wasn't going to run again. My wife and I are people of faith, so we prayed and we prayed and we prayed. We put a lot of fleeces out. And we felt like the Lord said, I want you to do this. So we're in this race to run and to win. I had to quit my job so I could do this full time. So I find myself unemployed for the first time in 31 years. I'm living off of savings. My 2 boys, I have a 10 and a 6-year-old son. They're having a wild summer. They're going to be doing rodeos and fairs and forums and parades. And my youngest kid, who's got a sugar addiction, is filling his pockets up with the candy that he's supposed to be passing out. But let me just tell you some of the big issues that I'm concerned about. And this is nothing new to anybody in this room. Number 1 is the border. My position is very clear on the border. We have to secure the border. We have to use our military today to secure the border. We have to complete the wall. And then we have to start the deportation process of every illegal alien in America. And we will start with the military combatants and the terrorists and the sex traffickers and the drug traffickers that this president has knowingly allowed to come into this country. And it has to be done. Because if we don't do it, you know what's going to happen. Someday, God willing, it won't happen. The D's are going to control all the levers. They're going to get rid of the filibuster. And overnight, they're going to make every illegal citizen in America a legal citizen. And they're going to put them on our entitlement programs, which are already stretched too thin. And they will sack our economy. And it's all intentional too, by the way. So we have to secure the border. We have to use the military to do it. We have to finish the wall, and then we have to start the deportation. We have to undo everything that this president has done on energy policy. Everything needs to be flushed down the toilet. And the only way that happens is if we get the president reelected. And I believe firmly the president is going to be reelected. And we all need to be praying for that and praying for his protection. Because the left sees what's happening. And I don't even think we can trust some of our intelligence agencies on that. So we all here, everybody here who loves God and prays, you need to be praying for President Trump's protection. Because I tell you what, they're not going to want January 20th to happen, because he's going to get reelected. He's going to do better this year than he did in 16. He's going to have enough votes to overcome all the fraud that's going to take place in the deep blue cities in our nation. Those 7 battleground states, but it's probably going to come down to 2. And so we need to be praying hard for President Trump. We need to undo all the inflationary policies this president has done. We need to get rid of the green energy policies. We need to stop spending the money. You look at our debt situation, we're going to be at $50 trillion debt by the end of the decade. You talk to people like Steve Forbes, they say that could be a tipping point for our currency. We could have a real currency crisis on our hands by the end of this decade. And you see our enemies out there that are trying to take away our world reserve currency. You look at the BRIC nations, you look at Russia, those countries, and we unfortunately, we weaponize our currency, which is why you see people like countries like Russia and China that are dumping our T-bills. And so this is a huge problem. We borrow 20 to 25% of our annual government budget by selling T-bills to people, Americans and non-Americans. A day could come when people aren't going to buy our T-bills. And then the government's going to be forced to do drastic cuts. They're going to have to look at entitlement programs. So we have, by the end of this decade, we have to have this budget situation under control. And it's going to be tough. We got to get rid of agencies. We don't need a Department of Education. It needs to go. Why do we have a Department of Commerce? It needs to go. We have to get rid of cabinet-level federal agencies. I don't support earmarks. I don't support pork. I don't support omnibus bills. I love my boss, Jake and Suzanne LaTurner. We didn't agree on everything. I didn't support the vote on FISA. I don't support Ukraine funding. I said, why are we picking a fight with a nuclear entity? Why are we doing this? It is ridiculous. I don't believe that Russia has plans to become the next Hitler and invade Poland. We've got to get out of Ukraine. We can't afford it. We have our own war going on right now on the southern border. That's where our interests need to be. We have probably led, this president's probably led in tens of thousands of terrorists, including from China. And they're not here on vacation. They're here to bring harm to our country. We don't know what the trigger is going to be. We don't know when that's going to happen. But it's going to happen, folks. It is going to happen because this president has already let too many of them in. And we need to combat what's going on with what I call our cultural collapse. You look at what we're doing right now. This whole transgender agenda, this woke agenda, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're more liberal than Europe now on what they're doing with these surgeries and these hormone things. I call these surgeries that they're doing on minor kids and these hormone therapies legalized child abuse. And every children's hospital in America does it to some degree. It's wrong, it's unethical, it's immoral, it's evil. And the federal government has to step in and stop it. And we can do it because these hospitals receive a lot of federal subsidies. We can say no more federal subsidies until you stop doing these evil practices on our minors. Most of these kids that are struggling with who they are, the studies will tell you, they grow out of it by the time they're 18, 19, and 20. They need help. They need counseling. It's a mental situation. We all know how everybody was made. It's in the Bible. It's very clear. God made man and woman. You're born a biological boy. You're born a biological girl. If you don't believe that, then you must not either believe in God or you must believe that God makes mistakes. And I don't think anybody in this room believes that. So I would ask for your help. I'd ask for your support. I look at my challengers here, and 2 good men. One of them served in the state Senate. He was the moderate leader when the moderates controlled the Senate. He voted for lots of tax increases. He voted for heavy spending. He voted against E-Verify, which is the only way we make sure that illegals aren't taking our jobs. He voted against a Choose Life license plate. Who doesn't support a Choose Life license plate? And I greatly respect the other gentleman that's also in this race, but he's new to the game. Johnny come lately. I've been in the trenches for 30 years. I've only worked for conservatives. I've only pushed forth conservative principles, conservative policies, and conservative values. You will never doubt how I'm going to be voting on any major issues when I'm in Congress. I know exactly the committees I want to serve on. I want to continue the great constituent service work that Jake LaTurner has done. And I'm never going to endorse a Democrat. One of my challengers, he led a major important trade association. They endorsed Democrats. They endorsed a liberal Democrat over Chris Kobach. So you're never going to hear that from me. I'm consistent all the way through. President Trump trusted me enough to hire me, and I believe if you can trust President Trump, you can trust me to serve in this congressional position. And I like to hang around, and if anyone wants to talk to me, it's Jeff Kahrs for Congress, Kahrs. You can look for me online, and I appreciate your support and your prayers. Thank you very much. Okay.
Chris?
Jeff, you mentioned not supporting the war in Ukraine and differing with Turner in that respect. What's your ideas in funding Israel? And
oh, thanks for asking that. I asked for that.
And to also follow that, who is Jake's APAC rep, and will he be yours also?
I don't know who his APAC rep is, but APAC rep. It's apples and oranges. I've been to Israel. My wife's been to Israel. I'm 100% in Israel. We need to give them anything they ask for, period. There's 2 countries in the world that have, I believe, a covenant. They were formed by a covenant with God. Israel and America. The Bible makes it very clear. If you bless Israel, God will bless us. If we curse Israel, God's going to curse us. And you know, right now, we got a president that's getting pretty darn close to that curse language. And so my position on Israel is clear. Anything they ask, we have to give it to them. We have to support them 100,000%. I do not believe we have the...
Iran?
We have to help Israel take care of the nuclear problem with Iran, period. Anything that Israel needs, we have to help them, period. Whether it's war, it doesn't matter. We have no choice. If we turn our back on Israel, I believe God will turn his back on this country. I think it's that simple.
I wish our reps currently, and future reps also, took that commitment to their constituents as greatly as they took it to Israel.
Yeah. Amen.
That'd be fantastic.
Thank you, Ray, for that.
Thank you, Jeff. And by the way, if someone wants to talk to any of the candidates personally, one-on-one, there's the meeting room just across the hall there that you can step in there and talk one-on-one. We got to keep this moving, so our next candidate, Derek Schmidt. Derek Schmidt was our 44th Attorney General. He argued cases before the Supreme Court. He served in the Kansas Senate for 10 years, and he was on the Ag Committee, 6 years as Senate Majority Leader, and recently our Republican candidate for governor. Willie Prescott will be speaking on behalf of Derek Schmidt tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. You can obviously see I'm not Derek Schmidt. He's a foot taller than me and about 80 IQ points higher than me. But he's tied up in southeast Kansas where the previous they couldn't get out of. So he asked if I would come do this, and it's a privilege to be here. It's great to see such a large turnout. It's nice to know people are interested and wanting to know what the candidates they can do. When Derek, and I'll try to be as brief as I can, but his main thing, number one thing he wants to look into, of course, we have this immigration problem that has to be solved and addressed as quickly as possible, especially if we get Trump in there. And if we can't take control of the Senate, there should be some slam dunks that should go on there. The other one that's killing us, and I'm a rural farmer, I farm in Osage County. When we talk about inflation, it's no easier place to see it than on the farm. Right now I'm paying 300% more for fertilizer than I paid 3 years ago. Right now equipment prices went, fuel prices doubled. But right now the price of soybeans I got today from the elevator is 35% below what they were 3 years ago. So it's a crunch on the ag area, and we are all ag counties out here. Kansas is based on ag. So fighting inflation, I think, should start with that. They stopped so many foreign sales of grain that the price has been depressed, and we hope to get that back. The other is intrusion, and I worked with Derek in the Attorney General's office. We served in the legislature together. He's in the Senate, I was in the House. But in the AG's office, I worked with him there. We had consumer protection issues, and we saw the intrusion in government. Now, an issue that failed on the state issue a few years ago was to have all rules and regs approved by the cabinet members have to be approved by the legislature. It failed. So when they come in here, they basically can set up their own rules and regs with no oversight, and that's how government can start intrusion that is so hard to reverse. It's just like a presidential order. Here we do it with cabinet members, and Laura Kelly's had no problem getting in pretty much to do anything she wanted them to do. But Derek served in the Senate for 10 years. He was the majority leader for 6 of those, so he's a leader there. He was in the Attorney General's office for 12 years, where he also served as the president of the National Attorney General's Association. So his leadership was shown there. And I asked him about going to Washington one time. He said, "Oh, it's a terrible mess there. I don't know why I want to go, especially when my kids are young." Well, both his girls are in college and out of the house now, and I think he's prepared and very well prepared. The one thing he knows, and being as I was a House Whip, I wish I could explain to you all the techniques to get a bill through, and I know about 50 ways to kill a bill. You can be so easily fooled if you're naive when you go in there, and I think when we had Representative Watkins, we kind of saw how that worked out. He wasn't prepared, and he was snowed under, and of course, he served one term and left. But like I say, I'm proud to come and represent Derek. I think most people know him. He's been in office several times. I think you can trust him. He's been a mentor to me, and I can't say how much I praise him. It's really been an honor to do that. I also got to work with the current Attorney General we have now, Chris Kobach, and they do great things too. And I got lucky and I could retire out of there and just farm. So with that, when we get to the primary vote, I'm sure Derek would appreciate your vote and your consideration.
Our next candidate is Michael Ogle. Mr. Ogle is from Topeka. He ran for mayor of Topeka as a Libertarian candidate. He's a Republican now. He's an Army veteran and served in Operation Enduring Freedom. Michael, you can speak.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is that I'm for term limits. I'm for congressional term limits, and if you want to send somebody, if you want congressional term limits without a con-con, you're going to have to send somebody that will promise you that will vote for congressional term limits. We need congressional term limits to end corruption, to end our politicians being bought by big corporations. We need them to be able to vote in the interest of the people and not in the interest of the big corp. Okay, the second thing, I'm for American exceptionalism. I want people to believe in America. I want opportunity for Americans. I want people to be able to believe that this country is exceptional. We say the Pledge of Allegiance in classrooms, we probably ought to say some of the Bill of Rights as well. One a day. We have to educate our children about what our founding fathers believed and why they believed it. We need to get buy-in to American idealism, buy-in to American exceptionalism. I want to turn the economy on. You've talked about oil. Well, drill here, drill now is right. American oil, American soil. I'm for it. I want American energy. I want American energy solutions. And the reason we don't have this green agenda is just, it's terrible. It's a suck on the economy. It's a shell for communism. It's a shell for socialism. What we need is American capitalism to provide energy for America. As far as that goes, we just got out of a 20-year war with Afghanistan. And we didn't get out of Afghanistan because we should have got out. We got out because China wanted in. Well, guess what they're doing over in Afghanistan now? China is mining the lithium to put in those green cars. China's buying up swaths of land the size of Nebraska in Africa to mine lithium to put in those green cars. We have to be able to compete economically on the global scale. We have to be able to get to the American agenda, to American exceptionalism with American jobs and through the American process. I'm not for the war in Ukraine. Okay, Europe can defend Ukraine if they want to. Okay, but Russia is lining their tanks up in rows and marching them in there like it's great. Our artillery would just destroy them. Okay, that's just a fact. So I'm not worried about it. Let it be. Keep the money home. Okay? Make the American tax dollars work for the Americans. Because that's what we are here to do. I'm for liberty. I'm for domestic tranquility. And I am for the more perfect union. and I'm asking you to vote for me, Michael Ogle, for Congress. I'm asking you to practice the impossible. Thank you.
Our next candidate this evening is Shawn Tiffany. Mr. Tiffany is the owner of Tiffany Cattle Company near Harrington. He's a K-State grad, manages the feedlot with his wife, and they have 5 children. Shawn is also the past president of the Kansas Livestock Association. Shawn?
Thank you, sir. Good evening. It's great to be with you all here tonight. Seneca looks an awful lot like my hometown of Council Grove. I'm a lifelong Kansan. I'm a proud agriculturalist, and I'm very proud to say that I'm a first-generation ag business owner. So, a little bit about my background. I do operate feedlots. My brother and I actually do it together, along with our wives. We grew up in the feedlot industry. We grew up spending every summer break and snow day and weekend working in agriculture. Matter of fact, snow days at our house were horrible because while our buddies were out sledding, we were shoveling bunks in the feedlot. So that was a negative growing up. But I bought that first feedlot in 2007 with nothing more than a handshake. It was my 30th birthday. My brother and I were both broke kids with new babies at home and wives that had chosen to stay at home and be mothers to our children. And a handshake was all we had to give as our down payment and our collateral. But God has blessed that. Today, Tiffany Cattle Company has grown from 6 employees to 60. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. I know what it's like to take risks, to worry about if I'm going to be able to make payroll next week, if I'm going to be in business next month. I know how to negotiate deals where everybody walks away from the table having benefited. And I think that's what America needs at this point. Folks, I'm a testament of the American dream. I am far more blessed than I ever dreamt that I would be. And I am proud to live in a country where that's still possible. But if we don't change what we're doing as an electorate or as a voting base, we're going to lose that American dream. The radical left is trying to take that away from my children and your children. They are not only the radical left, but also the moderate Republicans who are Republican in name only, who won't stand up for anything. And that's how we got to where we're at. Folks like you, I'm just as angry about an open border where there's a foreign invasion happening every single day. And we have a president who somehow thinks you're foolish enough to believe that if he comes out with an executive order like he did 2 weeks ago while I was on the Texas border and says he'll start enforcing our laws after it's been broken 2,500 times a day. I mean, come on, that's a charade and we all know it. I am fed up with the fact that we are $34 billion in debt. Today, our interest payments on our debt has surpassed our federal spending on Social Security and our defense budget. And what's worse is where are those interest payments going? They're going to China, one of our greatest enemies, if not our greatest enemy. China has made it clear they want to take America out at the knees, and yet we're sending interest payments to them every day on debt that we shouldn't have racked up to begin with. And so we've got to have a federally balanced budget amendment like we do here in Kansas, and then we got to start chipping away at the federal bureaucracy that is wasting our taxpayer dollars. Like you, I'm fed up with a woke agenda being pushed into our schools and our classrooms. My wife and I homeschool, actually that's not true. My amazing wife homeschools our 5 amazing children. I teach them things like hunting and agriculture and stuff like that, but I'm not in the classroom with them every day. And the other day, my 8-year-old son came up to me after he finished this year's school session, and he wanted to talk to me and tell me all about Desert Storm. I don't know that our public school systems are excelling well enough that very many 3rd graders know anything about Desert Storm. And so we have to get our education standards up. We have to protect our children from, I would argue, it's not legalized child abuse. It's child mutilation, and these people that are performing surgeries on these children are nothing better than butchers. We need to protect our girls in sports and spaces. I mean, I can't believe that this is even a conversation that we have to talk about tonight. My wife started the women's equestrian team at K-State. Sports are an incredibly important thing to the women in my family. I have 3 daughters that are all active and very competitive in their individual pursuits. And yet now they have to worry about whether they're going to have to compete against somebody that's biologically male, bigger than them, stronger than them, and could actually hurt them. These things are so asinine, it's hard to believe that we're even discussing it. We need to protect innocent life. We need to get as strong of abortion bans as we possibly can. We need to get our energy independence back as a nation. This administration cares more about what's going on in Ukraine than what they care about here. We could have built the southern border wall 10 times with the money that we've sent to Ukraine. It's time to put America first, look out for our own defense, and let the European Union and NATO fight their own wars. Folks, my opponents in this race think it's an asset to have spent their entire lives working in government as a politician or as a bureaucrat. To me, that's about as negative as I can even think of. Think back to the 1990s. Were you better off then or are you better off now? And if we continue to send bureaucrats and politicians to Washington, D.C., and we think we're going to get a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity, folks. I am fed up with what we have as a nation. I think it's time for change. We need to send fighters to Washington, D.C. who know what it's like to live as an ordinary Kansan that actually calls this home and has for the last 35 years, actually 46 years, I've lived here all my life. I've never had an address outside the state. I've never drawn a government paycheck a day in my life. I've worked hard to create something out of nothing, and I know what it's like to struggle and negotiate deals to where everybody's happy. And that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need to send fighters to Washington, D.C. who are going to stand alongside President Trump and make the hard decisions and fight with him to get our country back on track. The fact of the matter is, our country has a great chance, and I believe this fall, if we send enough Shawn Tiffany's to Washington, D.C. to stand shoulder to shoulder with President Donald Trump, we're going to make some great changes in the next couple of years. So with that, I'm asking for your vote on August 6th. Yes, sir.
So, genuine question of concern, when you go to DC and you probably inevitably face a horde of people that pressure you, some of that pressure may be unethical. How do you plan on being able to handle that?
So the question is, how do I plan on being able to withstand unethical requests or pressures, I guess? Force. Well, here's the thing. The reason I'm able to stand in front of you tonight, and the reason people across the state and across the nation ask me to consider getting in this ring, is because of who Shawn Tiffany is. And I have zero intentions of deviating from that. Folks, the cowboy hat's not just a prop. I wear a cowboy hat day in, day out. I think the American cowboy is iconic, and that's true nationwide, globally. It means you're going to say what you mean, do what you say, you stand for something, and you do not waver. And so for that reason, to your point, one of my opponents is trying to identify with the radicals on the right in D.C. And I'm choosing not to do that for a very intentional reason. A trained monkey can go to D.C. and vote every time the way the caucus tells them to vote. But it takes somebody with conviction, integrity, and that can think on their feet in order to make the right decision in every instance without somebody telling them how they're going to vote.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you, folks.
The last candidate in this race is Chad Young. Mr. Young is from Spring Hill. Kansas, where he's been on the city council, the council president, works for First Citizen Bank. Yeah, wrong, okay.
My name is Chad Young. Can everybody hear me? I live in Lawrence. I am a constitutionalist. I ran a nonprofit for troubled youth, for vets, for just troubled men and women across 2 states, Kansas and Arkansas. I reached out for about 4,000 of them and brought them back off of drugs, from rape, from molestation. And there's a lot of hurt people out there. As I said in my last speech, I had a room about half this size. I said that very thing. How many of you have been hurt? A lot of us. Not only being hurt on that level of the drugs, the alcohol, the other immoral stuff that we see across in our government, sex trades and stuff like that. There's a lot of that stuff going on. And we kind of just push that to the back burner because we got big pharma, we got big corporation, we have huge big government taking over the people, especially taking over the Republican Party. We just pretty much needed to dismiss LaTurner for trading us out. If you've seen the last 4 bills he passed, the Second Amendment was attacked. The 5th and 4th were attacked. There are men in this room that work for him. They should have stepped down. As soon as he went after that Second Amendment, they should have stepped down. They knew better. I will not work with a tyrant. Washington's full of tyrants. And I'm sure you can agree with that, correct? The tyrannical movement is huge in Washington. Big corporation. Now we look at that and we say, that's America. The United States of corporation. Not the United States of free sovereign nation. Not our Constitution anymore. Nobody's even afraid. In the 1950s, if you were to attack the Constitution, what would happen? They would kick you out of office. We have to hold everyone up there accountable. We have to pass bills that put them in prison if they attack the Constitution. But we're not too worried about doing that, and we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expect something different. That's insanity. The definition of insanity. We have to stop putting these lifetime politicians in. Well, why do we keep voting them in? Because they look good, they sound good, they got a good education? Where did education come from? Educate yourself to this. Where did education come from? The Rockefellers. Take that home with you. Look up the Rockefellers. Look up who teaches these people. And most of you are of the age, you know what I'm talking about. That Rockefeller movement is still happening in our educational system, in our medical fields, in big pharma. It's still going on for 100 years, but yet we still vote in the same guy. We still vote in the same politician. Term limits. Yes. 4 years, get out, buddy. Because he's going to get paid off otherwise. By who? Big pharma, big corporation, big tech. They're the new face now. Censorship. Let's censor them. FBI, CIA, abolish. They've attacked us. They've attacked us. We cannot stand for that any longer. They've attacked us. And they're not done attacking. President Trump, 36 felonies. Never in history have we tried to bury a president. Never. And yet a hit was placed on him 3 or 4 nights ago. And they saved his life. Nobody's talking about that in media because that's big tech. Censoring our ears and our mouths and our hearts and our souls and our God, the number one thing. We have to stop listening to big tech. Big pharma. Those meds aren't. My mother's got 37 pill bottles a month. That's not necessary. What happened to the natural stuff before big pharma was created in 1908? What happened to the natural stuff? The stuff grandma, drink some honey. That'll do you good. Why are we doing this? Why are we allowing these corporations and big pharma to bury us? The lady that spoke very first, she's so scared that she was shaking. Because big corporations going to each county, annihilating them. Putting whatever they want in the county and telling you got to leave your home. You got to leave your homestead, because if you don't take what we're offering you, we're going to take it anyways, and you'll have nothing. No, no, no. We're in a war. It's not China, and it's not Russia. They want you to believe that in these proxy wars. No money going. I'm part Israeli, part Jewish. Man asked a man about Israeli. Would I give him money? I would love to give him all the money in the world, but our cup's empty. Not that I wouldn't. I'd give every dime I had to Israel. Because we should. The Bible says so. But you're not 35 trillion. Somebody said that earlier, and no offense to that fellow. You're 50 trillion. You're already there. The interest rates alone on what we owe, it's impossible for your grandkids to pay off. And their grandkids. America has been sold out, and what we've got to do is take it back. Abolish, abolish, abolish. And until you abolish in your heart, your mind, your soul, you're done. Your grandkids will have no free speech, no Second Amendment. The Constitution will be torn in half. Wake up! I'm not here to make friends with the politicians. I'm not a politician. I'm a patriot. I was an ex-fighter. I was an ex-pro boxing coach, and I reached out for 4,000 students. And most of them were on drugs, raped, pillaged by what we've set up and allowed to have happened in America. Some of you in here walked in the 1950s and 60s. Wasn't that wonderful? The only way we can take it back, and this is the truth, is abolish. Get that government this big and make the people this big. Free our people today. But we got to put God first. The foundation of Jesus Christ. Because if you don't, we're done. My name's Chad Young, and I'm not backing down. Abolish. I'm tired of this government. God bless you all. Pray for me as I pray for you. We have a war.
Thank you. There's a round of the 5 candidates that are running for the 2nd Congressional District.